of course, in the industry for years about blended learning. We think that in the early days, often there was more smoke than fire behind the idea of blended learning. But I think at this point we're crossing the knee bend and blended learning is really going mainstream. So I think that there's some organizations who have really pushed quite far in making blended learning concrete, and other organizations are expressing interest in trying to figure out how to work it into some of the projects they're working on. So what we've tried to do with this webinar series is we thought something that would be helpful to organizations is to show just what we call worked examples. What are some examples of how organizations have actually used blended learning? And to make it most useful, we thought it would be best to organize that around different need areas, different use cases. So we've covered leadership, we've covered sales. Today's number 3 out of 4. We'll dig into onboarding, and then we'll have a final session coming up, I think, in 3 weeks on compliance. So thanks for joining. Just wanted to give an introduction. Oops, moved past that too fast. I'm Chip Cleary. I lead consulting and solutions here with Kineo. And Cami, let me invite you to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm the one on the right of your screen. I'm Cami Bean. I work out of Massachusetts. Chip's in Chicago. And I am the VP of Learning Design for Kineo. I've been around the block for a long time, in the business for 20 years at this stage, which is hard to believe. And really excited to be here today with you all.
Great. And then just to give you a little bit of background about Kineo, for those who are not familiar with us, we're a learning solutions company. We bring solutions that contain a number of different elements to them. So we've been developing blended learning programs for some time. You know, that includes e-learning, that includes synchronous learning as well, learning portals, so technology platform to help organizations deliver learning. We work on consulting, we do some training. I think overall, and part of the ethos of Kineo is that we think that it's really a great time to be in learning because there's so much change that's happening. And there's so much more we can do with our solutions now than we could do even 5 years before, much less 15 years before. So it's a fun time, but in that time of change, we think lots of ideas are coming up from lots of different areas. And what we like to do is to try to invite people to share best practices with us, and we like to try to share what we've seen out with the marketplace. So that leads us to run events like we're running today on blended learning.
And all of these are based on a series of guides that we have produced and that are available through our website. Leadership Blended Learning That Works is the companion piece to today's webinar. And what we're trying to do in this format is not just regurgitate what's in that PDF. You can go off and read that and get some different insights out of it. So we really want to dig into it maybe a little bit different angle today, and hopefully it will supplement what's already there with lots of these worked examples. So we're going to start with a poll. Sabrina's going to pull over a poll for you. I just want you to think about your current onboarding program, and how would you characterize it? You have to pick just one, and we'll give you about 40 seconds to figure that out. We don't have one. It's just an event. Maybe people come together for a day or two, and you call it onboarding, and that happens once a month, and voila, they are part of the organization. Maybe you already have a mature blended program that starts with the joining date, or even thinking before people join. So you want to give them another few seconds there? And Sabrina, when you're able to show the results, close the poll and show the results. All right, so it looks like 12% of you don't have an onboarding program. For 27% of you, it's more of that traditional event, so thinking about having a series of classroom events. 43% are already doing blended that starts with the joining date, so probably on day one you have some expectation of getting things going. And 18% of you are starting doing that onboarding before we've even gotten to the join date. So pre-hire, we're already thinking about onboarding and bringing people on. Great. So now we've got another poll. That gives us a really good sense of where you're at. We've got another poll. All the polls were waiting up front. Is thinking about typical goals for an onboarding program. So think about your goals. What do you see as the single biggest opportunity for your organization? And we're going to have to make you pick one. That's kind of hard. So you're welcoming people in, you're reinforcing that they made this great decision to join your organization. You're showing how we work here. That's what we see in a lot of onboarding programs. It's kind of all that getting started, the policies and procedures, how to do your job. Maybe it's specific on-the-job training for your task. What do you think is the biggest goal for your onboarding program as it exists today? And if it doesn't fit into what we've got here as categories, you can type something into the questions pod over there on the right, or in your little GoToMeeting taskbar. And let's give them another 5 seconds, Sabrina, and then close that poll. All right, so 20%, the biggest opportunity is welcoming people and making them feel part of that tribe. 20% say it's about reinforcing the decision that you made a great decision in joining the organization. 15% onboarding is just how we work here, so less about the tactical stuff, it seems. 33% of you are sharing critical getting started policies and procedures, so that might be those 2 days, and I've seen those at organizations. You go into a room and, here's our HR system, here's where you need to do this, here's how you timesheet. And then 13% are focusing as a top priority on building those job-specific capabilities. So that's really interesting data. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think that gives us more insight and really feeds into what Chip's about to talk to now, which is sort of a Maslow's hierarchy of need for new employees. So if we can switch back over to the deck.
Great. And let me check, are you able to see the deck at this point? So
not right now. It's gone, okay. So I think you have to reshare.
Okay.
Polls do that tricky thing.
Yeah. So let me see if I can get that up again. Are we able to see it now?
No. I don't see it. Sabrina?
I don't see it yet either.
Let's see.
Yeah, so we're not able to see the deck. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me, we have a, so I will see if I can change, so I'll share everything here. And hopefully that will help. So Cammie, if
there we go.
There we go?
There we go.
Excellent. Well, so let me come back to where we left off. So what we did is we just saw a couple of polls. In the first poll, we saw that many of you have moved to blended programs, some to blended programs all the way that start before actual join date. That covered about half the audience, and roughly half the audience was in the category of not really having a corporate program or having something that was more event-based. What we saw after that then, when we looked at the biggest opportunity, was a fairly distributed result, where lots of people saw as their biggest opportunity, different things. So there was a little bit of biggest opportunity being about sort of policies and procedures, but it's pretty spread out. And I think that points to one of the issues with onboarding, which is that there's so many goals that we can look at. That means that we need to, in many cases, create onboarding programs that have a fair number of elements in them. And one way we've seen to summarize that is to think about onboarding programs in terms of both the goals of the company and also the goals of the new joiner. And so when you think about the goals of the company, that's where things like make sure we understand the policies and procedures, make sure that we build job-specific skills. These are the things we want from you in order for you to be productive and not to break the rules when you're in our company. That's one set of objectives. Then there's a whole other set of objectives, which are, boy, I'm a new joiner, and how do I feel about this life-changing decision I've made? So what we're showing now on the slide is a kind of Maslow's hierarchy of, boy, if I am a new joiner, what do I need? And I need to connect. I need to feel like I belong. I need to feel like this is a place where I'm loved and I love what I'm going to be able to bring. And then I need to be able to understand just what's expected of me. I need to support to get there and know that I'm going to develop over time. And I need to be able to start to get satisfaction on my job. Well, what that means is that in order to both meet the needs of the company and the new joiner, that's a pretty tall order for any program. And so onboarding programs often end up having many different elements in them in order to be able to deliver against that set of expectations. So, out of that world of all the different needs and all the different approaches one can put into an onboarding program, what we've done is we've picked out 5 areas where we thought we could share some interesting examples with you about how to push an onboarding program forward. So you'll see soon the idea of how to make not an event, but consider your onboarding program a campaign that delivers both the goals of the organization against the goals of the new joiner. In doing that, make sure to make it human, and a big chunk of that is sharing stories. Since it is often a blended program can be complex, to make sure to figure out how can we make that clear to the people going through the journey, and oftentimes that means providing a home for the journey. And then finally, notice the numbers started coming in, job-specific skills popped up early on in the lead in that poll, although the numbers evened out, but there's a fair amount of onboarding of, as we think about a corporate program, how can we also make sure we don't forget the roles that are most critical and invest against minding what matters in some of the key roles. So that's what we'll cover. Now, Cammie, as we get started, why don't we talk about running a campaign?
Yeah, so onboarding, as we've said, really doesn't start. It's not just a single event, and often we actually look at it, and it's really 2 years often to onboard. There's some data around how long it takes someone to really feel integrated and part of the organization, and it's not just one and done thing. And 2 days later, voila, you're onboarded. And that campaign really starts before. It starts during the recruiting process even. But imagine, and here we're showing some examples of an e-magazine type approach for a hospitality organization. And imagine this is going out prior to, they haven't even come into the office. So welcoming them into the organization. It can start the moment that new joiner takes your job offer, right? So we wanted to find a fun way here to deliver some messages, welcome them to the team, start creating that feeling of belonging, which is so critical to getting people feeling comfortable. This is your new home. This is where you're going to be potentially living and working for maybe a long time. We want to feel a part of it. So can you get that message out beforehand through a simple tool like this? What would you, and think about it and just consider this, if you were starting at a new organization, would you want to get this the day you hit send on your acceptance email? Let's say you got that offer letter and you signed it, and then within hours you get something welcoming you. How would that make you feel? Would that be a nice add-on to your experience? I think I would like it for sure. Now, Chip's going to come on to now point 2, which is really about sharing those stories, and Laura, this ties in a little bit to some of the question that you had. And if you've heard me speak before, you know that my mantra is always about, it's all about the people, man, right? And that's even more true in an onboarding experience. So Chip, what do we say about this here?
I mean, we do talk a lot about stories in a lot of different contexts, and in particular for onboarding. You imagine, the last time you joined a new organization, what was really most important to you? And it was making connections, it was understanding what matters and understanding how people behave in organizations. And, those policy descriptions often don't really convey that. What conveys that are the stories that people tell about work that show what their values are. And, many onboarding programs we've seen over the years, there's the message from the executive. So there's the CEO message that welcomes you to the organization, and that's important. Along with that, though, there's a sense of how do we work inside an organization. And I know here at Kineo, for example, as part of our onboarding process, we do horizontal interviews where a new joiner will come in and speak with people across departments to interview them basically about what brought them there, what do they like about the job, how do they work, what do they see as difficult about the job, and we do that as part of our onboarding process here. We're a smaller organization, so we do that live. what we're showing you here for a blended approach to is an example from PwC. It's actually taken from a different program, but it's something that plays right into onboarding about having a video wall that begins to talk to people about their career aspirations inside the organization. What brought them to this company? Why do they stay? What are they hoping to accomplish over time? And so this notion that, in larger organizations we can use technology to help the sharing of stories really begins to help build that sort of foundation of, oh, I understand why I joined this company, and I'm excited, I made the right decision. Here's another example of that, too. This is from a different company. This is from EasyJet, which is the largest airline in the UK, and it's part of a broader onboarding journey which EasyJet provides. And it's just a nice, simple way in which you can look across the organization and begin to understand wherever it is you happen to work, how your work influences and it depends on the work of other people and what they care about. So this is really a way to say, it's nice to get a sort of review of the org chart of an organization when you walk in, but it feels quite different to be able to speak, even if only virtually, with a series of people from across the organization. So what we're finding is, if you think about the needs of the company often don't have a lot to do with sharing the stories of the company, but if you flip that switch and begin to think about the needs of the new joiner, this notion of making it human, helping me by sharing the stories of the organization become an important play in the onboarding playbook. Now, that's just one element inside a broader journey.
Yeah, and I would say, just to kind of add on to that, Chip, we're talking about a blended experience, and onboarding truly is a blend. So we're showing some digital examples here, but imagine how you could bring that into the real world. So at Kineo, when we've got a new hire, part of what we ask them to do is schedule lunch dates, over the next couple of weeks with different team members. And go out and talk to them and get to know them. That is so important. It's that we don't want you just sitting off in a corner doing your job. I mean, of course, we do want you to do your job, but getting that sense of belonging. So maybe you do some kind of assigned mentoring, or maybe there's a bit of a social group that you can connect them to, thinking face-to-face, using your social platforms. But it's much more than just, Blend isn't just face-to-face classroom, and then throw up an e-learning course. We want to think about all aspects of it. All right, so and the next part, what we're going to be talking about today, is really clarifying the journey now. So onboarding is this journey that's not, it begins prior to the start date, and it goes on for a number of weeks, and it could even go on into the, first or second year of employment within this organization. So think about what that map is going to look like and clarify that, provide that for the new hire. Now, this is not meant to be a representation of an online course or anything. This is one organization's map that they created as part of the new journey, the new hire experience. And it makes it really easy to let you know how it's all going to kind of flow out and give them great expectations for what's going to happen. And if we think about how complex a program like this is, we want to help people understand where they've been, where they're going, what's going to come next, what they've done already. And that's lots of ways that you can represent that. This is actually a learning management system platform here, this screenshot. And this is the journey in a very visual representation. And as part of their LMS portal, this is built in Totara, they can go through and explore the journey. So before you start, here are the experiences that we want you to go through. Your first day, here's what's going to happen, and really setting up that journey up so they've got a clear idea of where they're going. If we look at another example for City and Guilds, this is from the City and Guilds Way, which is a program that introduces people new to the workforce to actually earn some kind of a qualification. And here there's a map. This is also on a Totara learning management system. And we provide a map of what their experience is going to be like over this time period. So you can see it's July, August, September, all the way into October. There's still stuff going on. There's still structured activities that we want you to do. So you've got that map. You can push it a little farther, and you could build activities on top of it. You could add an extra layer of engagement and competition. Some of our onboarding programs actually have badging systems. Adding that layer of engagement in a meaningful way is really important too. And thinking about how you're going to connect human beings to other human beings within your organization. So here, new joiners actually earn points and badges. and there's a lot that you can do to set up like extra challenges for them to earn bonus points. So think about who your audience is and where they are and the kinds of needs that they might have.
Yeah. And in the Q&A, Gina raised a point that, hey, the map is too small to see the text. And in fact, that's spot on right. So just to reflect on what Cammie's been saying, I mean, part of the point is that when you begin to tackle all of the goals that you can throw at an onboarding program to both meet the needs of the organization and also the new joiner, you end up with those sort of rat's nest diagrams of what you've designed as the learning solution. And that gives a great challenge, because at that point now, if I'm a new joiner and I'm coming into the company and you, with the best intentions, have created a blended program, but a program that is somewhat complex, that leads to the challenge of how are we going to make it simple for you? Because if you are a new joiner, almost by definition, you're going to be overwhelmed. And so if you're overwhelmed and we're giving you something complex to follow, well, those ends might not meet. And I think part of the idea of showing some of these maps is how it's important to be able to give the user a kind of simple to follow guide for how you can play along with the onboarding program and make sure to make use of it. And I think part of what comes out of that then is, if you have a complex program, and even if you have a map, and if on that map you're going to have something that says, do a horizontal interview with a person in a different department, and it's also going to say, make sure that you enter your first timesheet and get it checked by your manager before you do that, before you move on. And it's also going to say, here's some skills training you need to take in order to be able to do your job effectively, and on and on and on with the compliance that's required, with the other listening to stories that we want to add to it. We need a way to be able to deliver that experience, and it can be difficult to deliver a multifaceted experience. So what we've seen several of our clients want to do is to take the idea of a map, take the idea of all those blended elements, and create something that's a home for them. The most natural place for that home is typically your learning management system. What we've heard from several organizations is that, boy, on the one hand, that might be the most natural place, but it's not the user experience we really want to provide. And so what we've seen is a number of organizations taking an extra step to create a special home. And so this is one example of that from the EasyJet example that you mentioned earlier. Something that's nice about that is, if you think about the needs of the learner and the notion that I've now joined a new organization and I want to understand the personality of that organization, I made a bet on it when I signed on the dotted line. Oftentimes that the LMS we're able to deliver doesn't really reflect what we think our organization's personalities are, but if you step back and provide a portal, you can begin to do that. So here's an example of how EasyJet tried to do that with reflecting their simple and fun structure. Here's another example from a different organization. This is TUI. This is a travel services organization. And part of what TUI was trying to accomplish is that they're inside their luxury services group, and they're often trying to compete with beautiful brochures of remote locations that people choose from for travel. So what they wanted to do is to convey to their agents, who are their largest joining audience, that we'll deliver things that are as beautiful as you'll see in any luxury brochure, and we do that in a responsive way. And so in this case, they've not only created a home for their onboarding program, but they've also made sure to deliver it in a way that works with the lives of their agents, which means that it's delivered in a responsive format, HTML5. One more example just from a different organization to show the variety of personalities. This is from a health services organization in the UK. Again, the same idea, which is that every organization has a unique personality, and what we want to do in an onboarding experience is provide some place where all of that fits together, where if I'm the new joiner, I know where to go, I can see what I need to do next, even if the overall journey is rather complicated. And when I go there, every time I see it, I feel good about, oh yeah, these are the guys that I really meant to join. I feel good about making a good decision. So that's a bit about providing a home that can cut across all roles in the organization. At the same point, one of the challenges we face in organizations is not all roles are necessarily created equal. So as we move on, I mean, one thing that we see many organizations wanting to do is to provide a basic approach for all jobs, but then also be able to use that to drill down into specific needs for particular jobs. So this last example, I'll flip back to that with TUI. In the TUI case, they have an audience of travel advisors who, in terms of impact for their business, being able to successfully onboard travel advisors is disproportionately important, and so they invested disproportionately to make sure that their solution would work even in the mobile lives of their travel advisors. This example is from Nationwide. It's an organization that is a financial services organization. The same thing. What they tried to do is identify what are the key roles, and while our overall platform will work, we'll make sure that we're able to drill down into this key role and provide solutions that go deep where it matters most. So, as you think about blended learning, it can be overwhelming to try to create detailed and specific journeys for everybody. There's really not a need to be consistent in that way. You can provide higher level, broader journeys for the 2,000 roles you may have in your organization, and really detailed, specific journeys for the roles that matter most. So let me pause there, step back. What we've tried to do in this half hour is to go through 5 techniques that can be useful in a blended onboarding program, and to illustrate how those techniques can play out. So the notion of running the campaign, onboarding is not an event. It's not even a series of events. It's a series of different kinds of things which come in different sized pieces, and there's a marketing throughout that, helping us convince our employees that they made a good choice when they signed on the dotted line. An important part of that is being human and sharing stories. Lots of different ideas for how to do that. But as we create this complex journey, there's a need to provide a map, and often there's a need to place that map in a home that reflects the personality of the organization. The same point, so that we're not spooning the ocean trying to create something which is impossible to execute. We don't have to necessarily provide the same level of support for all job roles. We can go deep on the few job roles that matter most. So that's a summary of what we wanted to share. Well, let's see if we have a couple of questions. We have a couple minutes left in our time. Not a whole lot of time, but perhaps a little bit.
Melanie actually shared that I think this is probably back to the Maslow's hierarchy diagram shift, and she said, we're doing the first 3. It's that tribe building aspect where we need to move, and I think that's a great language to consider. I mean, when you join an organization, it helps to find your people. You want to know that your people are there, and you want to connect with them, and you want to help people build those connections, because, especially if it's a big organization that you're joining. Where are my people? Who, and it's about finding out who's going to help you do your work, but also, who you want to go out to lunch with, who you might want to socialize with, who, this is your cohort and your tribe, and I think that I love the term tribe building. So thanks for sharing that.
I think we've reached at this point. Christina, by the way, thank you for the note about the fire alarms. It actually turns out that was where I am in Chicago, and I'm up on the 8th floor on the street out front of our office building. There's a car that's had its car alarm going off for the last 45 minutes. So everybody's safe here, and it seems like in the last 5 minutes they've actually managed to unlock their keys or whatever the problem was. So thanks very much for joining today. Cammie, any other comments before we sign off? Appreciate everybody who took the time to spend a half hour with us.
Yeah, thank you for joining. I apologize that we weren't able to get to all of the questions. We can follow up. Our contact info is here if you want to follow up with either of us, and we can pick brains a little bit. And thanks for joining. And hopefully we'll see you for the next series, the compliance webinar, which is in about 3 weeks.
Have a great day, folks.